A young man once decided he wanted to get in shape. On the first day, he ran 5 kilometers. The next day, his legs ached. By the third day, he didn't run at all. A week later, he quit. Sound familiar? The truth is, most of us don't fail because we lack talent, dreams, or opportunity. We fail because we don't follow through. Not because we're lazy, but because we expect instant transformation. And when we don't see it, we stop. Consistency isn't about motivation. It's about clarity. When you're clear about why you do what you do, you no longer need to force yourself. You align yourself. Now think of brushing your teeth. You don't skip it, not because you love it, but because you understand it prevents pain. You do it daily, not for instant results, but for long-term health. That's the mindset consistency thrives in, routine tied to reason. You don't need to climb the whole staircase today. You just need to show up. And when you do that enough, day after day, magic begins to happen. Habits take over. Identity takes shape. You go from trying to be consistent to being someone who is consistent. So if you truly want to force consistency, stop chasing results, chase rhythm. Don't ask, what do I feel like doing today? Ask, what kind of person do I want to become? Then act like that person, even when it's uncomfortable. Because real success doesn't come from intensity. It comes from sustainability. Most people blame their lack of consistency on low motivation. I just don't feel like it today, they say. Or, I need to get motivated first. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like the tide, often leaving us stranded just when we need to act. The real culprit behind inconsistency isn't a lack of motivation. It's a lack of clarity. When you don't have a strong internal compass, when you're unsure of what you're doing, why you're doing it, or who you're doing it for, your actions become scattered and your efforts short-lived. You can't be consistent with a vague direction. You need a purpose that cuts through the noise and pulls you forward even when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. Clarity is what turns, I have to do this, into I want to do this. When you're clear on your why, you stop relying on emotion to take action. You begin to act with intention. Think about an athlete who wakes up at 5 a.m. to train, not because they enjoy the cold or the pain, but because they've seen the vision of who they want to become. That clarity makes the discipline automatic. It shifts the narrative in their mind from, this is hard, to, this is worth it. And that shift is everything. Because once you're emotionally aligned with your purpose, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes a part of your identity. Without clarity, every day feels like a negotiation. You wake up debating whether to go to the gym, write the chapter, or make that difficult call. But when you're clear about your deeper purpose, whether it's to be a leader, create a legacy, or build a life you're proud of, there's no debate. There's only alignment. Clarity acts as a filter, helping you make decisions faster and stick with them longer. It transforms discipline from something you have to push into something that pulls you. That's the difference between people who show up once in a while and people who show up no matter what. Perfection is a trap disguised as ambition. It tells you that unless everything is just right, it's not worth starting. But that mindset kills momentum before it even begins. The pursuit of perfection is often where consistency dies. Why? Because perfection is rigid. It demands ideal conditions, flawless execution, and immediate results. But real life is messy. You won't always have the perfect energy, mood, or environment. And that's okay. What you need isn't a perfect plan that collapses under pressure. What you need is a rhythm, a sustainable pace that adjusts to life but never stops. Rhythm is the secret to long-term success. Think of it like music. A great song isn't made up of one explosive note. It's made of consistent beats, carried with emotion, timing, and flow. That's how habits are built. You don't need to go all in for 1 week and burn out by the next. Instead, show up daily, even if it's not your best. Create a flow in your life that allows for progress, not perfection. Missed a workout. Get back to it tomorrow. Didn't feel like writing today. Write 1 sentence. Rhythm gives you the grace to keep moving without the pressure to be flawless. When you shift from perfection to rhythm, you start playing the long game. You build trust with yourself. You learn to ride the highs without getting lost in them, and to push through the lows without giving up. That rhythm becomes your baseline. It gives your days structure, your actions meaning, and your mind peace. And most importantly, it keeps you moving forward. Because perfection asks, did you do it right? But rhythm asks, did you keep going? And that one question changes everything. Consistency becomes effortless when your actions are rooted in who you believe you are. Most people try to build habits by changing what they do, but the real transformation happens when you change how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who's inconsistent, lazy, or undisciplined, you'll always act in alignment with that identity, no matter how hard you try to fix your behavior. But the moment you begin to shift your internal story from I'm trying to be consistent to I am someone who follows through, everything changes. Identity isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. When your behavior reflects your belief system, consistency becomes natural. Consider someone training for a marathon. If they view themselves as someone who hates running, then every step is a chore. But if they begin to see themselves as a runner, suddenly the early mornings, the sore muscles, and the hard miles aren't obstacles, they're part of the identity. The same principle applies in business, relationships, health, or any area of growth. Your repeated actions shape your identity, but your identity also dictates which actions feel natural to you. This creates a feedback loop. The more you act like the person you want to become, the more that identity becomes real, and the more consistent your actions become as a result. The key is to stop waiting for your behavior to build your identity and start letting your desired identity guide your behavior. Don't ask, what do I need to do today? Ask, what would someone like me do? Someone who is reliable, disciplined, purpose-driven. And then do exactly that. When your identity is clear, consistency isn't something you fight for, it's something you protect. You no longer act out of pressure, you act out of alignment. And that alignment, when sustained, creates an unstoppable internal engine that drives long-term, meaningful progress. We tend to overvalue grand gestures and underestimate quiet effort. Most people wait for the perfect opportunity to go all in, a Monday, a new month, a new year. They push hard for a few days, maybe even a week, and then burn out. Why? Because consistency isn't built on intensity, it's built on repetition. It's not what you do occasionally that shapes your life, it's what you do repeatedly, without applause, without urgency, without immediate reward. A single salad won't make you healthy. One workout won't transform your body. But a decade of tiny choices, that's what changes everything. Small actions done daily are what build real transformation. Brick by brick, not all at once. Imagine someone watering a plant once a month with a flood versus someone giving it just enough water every single day. One kills with neglect, the other nurtures with discipline. Life works the same way. Your habits are seeds, and every small, consistent effort is a drop of water. Most of the time, you won't see the result immediately. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something is happening underneath, silently, gradually, powerfully. Whether it's writing 1 page a day, making one better food choice, reading for 5 minutes, or making one honest effort toward your goals, those tiny steps compound. Over time, they build mastery, trust, and momentum. The danger in chasing only big wins is that it keeps you stuck in cycles of burnout and recovery. You go hard, crash, feel guilty, then try again, and each time it gets harder to trust yourself. But when you shift to honoring the small daily reps, you create a rhythm your body and mind can sustain. And the truth is, that quiet rhythm, those boring, unsexy actions, are what make greatness possible. That's how authors write books. That's how athletes dominate. That's how leaders earn trust, not with once innate wild effort, but with a long string of small, consistent choices made every single day. Emotion is a powerful spark. It's what gets you started. A moment of inspiration, a powerful video, a painful truth. These can light a fire under you. And in that moment, it feels like nothing can stop you. You decide to change your life. You make a plan. You feel unstoppable. But here's the truth: no one talks about emotions fade. Motivation wears off. The high of starting something new is temporary. Eventually, the excitement turns into effort, the energy wears thin, and the path gets quiet. That's where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they relied too heavily on feeling good to keep going. Discipline is what keeps you moving long after your emotions have left the room. It's the decision to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Emotion may get you out the door the first time, but discipline gets you out the door the 100th. Think about elite performers, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs. They don't just operate on inspiration. They operate on systems. They've trained themselves to follow through regardless of mood, weather, energy, or praise. That's the difference. It's not about feeling ready, it's about doing it anyway. Because discipline respects the goal more than the mood. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You just need to act like the person you said you wanted to become. Discipline is a form of self-respect. It says, my word to myself matters more than how I feel right now. When you rely on discipline over emotion, you start to build an inner strength that doesn't waver. You don't get thrown off course every time life feels inconvenient. You show up anyway. And every time you do, you're not just making progress. You're building identity. You're becoming the kind of person who follows through. And that, more than any emotional high, is what creates lasting change. We often think that success is purely about willpower, that if we're strong enough, we can push through any distraction, resist any temptation, and stay disciplined no matter what. But the truth is, willpower is limited. It gets depleted. And when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, willpower alone isn't enough. That's why environment matters so much. Your surroundings either support your growth or sabotage it. If your life is full of clutter, distractions, or people who don't respect your goals, staying consistent becomes a daily battle. But if your environment is aligned with your values and routines, consistency becomes the path of least resistance. Think about this. If you keep junk food on your kitchen counter, you'll eventually eat it, even if you plan to eat healthy. If your phone is always within reach while working, you'll check it, even if you swore to focus. It's not because you lack discipline, it's because your environment was designed to break your focus. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up to a clean space with your gym clothes laid out, your phone in another room, and a visual reminder of your goals on the wall. Suddenly, the battle becomes easier, not because you're stronger, but because the world around you is working with you, not against you. We become consistent not just by forcing ourselves to act differently, but by setting up systems and spaces that make the right actions easier. Surround yourself with people who live the kind of discipline you aspire to. Build routines into your day that make decision-making automatic. Organize your environment so that your priorities are always visible. You don't rise to the level of your motivation, you fall to the level of your systems. And when your environment reinforces who you want to become, showing up becomes a habit, not a struggle. One of the hardest parts of staying consistent is that at first, it feels like nothing is working. You go to the gym for weeks and the mirror doesn't change. You write every day, but the pages don't feel like a book. You wake up early, practice discipline, and build habits. And yet, life looks the same. That's when the doubt creeps in. Why am I even doing this? It's tempting to quit because the reward isn't immediate. But this is where most people get it wrong. Progress isn't loud in the beginning. It's quiet, silent, invisible. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. The work is taking root beneath the surface. Think of a bamboo tree. For the first few years after it's planted, there's no visible growth above the ground. None. But during that time, it's building a massive root system. Then suddenly, in just a few weeks, it can shoot up over 80 feet. Was it growing only in those weeks? No, it was growing the whole time. You just couldn't see it. That's how human growth works too. The early stages are foundational. You're building mental strength, emotional resilience, and daily discipline. You're laying roots that no one can see, but those roots will one day support extraordinary results. That's why consistency matters even when there's no spotlight, no progress photo, and no applause. Eventually, the day will come when the results show up. And they won't just show up, they'll explode. People will say you got lucky. They'll notice the success, but they won't understand the invisible process behind it. They won't see the early mornings, the lonely reps, the days you showed up when no one was watching. But you'll know the truth that success wasn't sudden. It was stacked. And every single invisible day of effort made it possible. That's why you must keep going, especially when it feels like nothing is changing, because that's exactly when everything is. No one becomes truly consistent alone. While personal discipline is essential, it thrives best in an environment of accountability. We are social creatures. We perform differently when we know someone is watching, when someone expects us to show up. Accountability doesn't mean punishment or shame, it means structure, support, and responsibility. It's the presence of someone who reminds you of your higher standards when you forget. Whether it's a mentor, a friend, a coach, or even a simple public commitment. Accountability strengthens your follow through. Because when left to ourselves, we negotiate too easily. But when someone else is counting on us, we rise to meet it. There's a reason top performers, from athletes to entrepreneurs, build circles of accountability around them. Not because they're weak, but because they're wise. They understand that willpower is limited, but expectation is powerful. When you tell someone, "I'll send you the draft by Friday," you're far more likely to finish it. When you commit to training with a partner, you show up even on days you feel off. Accountability builds an external system that keeps your internal compass honest. It shortens the gap between intention and action. And over time, it becomes less about avoiding disappointment and more about honoring your word. Not just to others, but to yourself. What's powerful about accountability is how it transforms your mindset. It turns your goals into shared commitments. It pushes you out of isolation and into alignment. And that's where consistency truly multiplies. When you're not just chasing a result in private, but when your journey is witnessed. It brings pressure, yes, but the right kind of pressure, the kind that sharpens you, focuses you, and fuels your momentum. Because when someone is watching, not to judge you, but to believe in you, you begin to show up not just more often, but more fully. And in that space, consistency becomes not just possible, but inevitable. We tend to over-glorify moments and underestimate patterns. We celebrate the promotion, the big win, the transformation photo. And while those moments are meaningful, they are not what shape your future. What truly determines where your life is heading isn't what you occasionally achieve. It's what you repeatedly do. It's not the single moment of brilliance, but the thousands of quiet repetitions that built up to it. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. Your future isn't created in a day. It's created daily through repeated choices, repeated actions, and repeated beliefs that align with who you want to become. Think about any meaningful change in life. Becoming healthier, building a business, growing emotionally, learning a skill. None of these happen because of one good day. They happen because someone kept showing up long after the excitement wore off. That's why habits matter so much. Your life is a reflection of your patterns. If you show up to write every day, you eventually become a writer. If you train regularly, you become an athlete. If you listen, learn, and reflect daily, you become wise. It's not about occasional greatness. It's about faithful repetition. And the beautiful thing is, the more you repeat, the more natural it becomes. Your future starts to lean in the direction of your habits. Every small, repeated action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Even on the days it doesn't look like much, those reps are casting a ballot in your favor. Most people are waiting for one big break, one lucky moment, one perfect plan, but you don't need any of that. You need rhythm. You need structure. You need to make the right choice one more time, then one more time after that. Because your future self isn't shaped by what you hope for or wish for. It's shaped by what you do over and over again until it becomes who you are. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. You will slip. You will miss a day. You will break a streak, forget a promise, lose your focus. That's part of the process. What matters most isn't avoiding the fall, it's how quickly you recover. Forgiving yourself is essential. Shame is heavy, and when we carry it too long, it turns into a reason to quit altogether. You miss one workout and tell yourself you failed. You eat one bad meal and say the diet's ruined. But that mindset builds nothing. Learn to forgive yourself fast. Let go of the guilt, because guilt never fuels growth. It only feeds the lie that you're not capable of change. But here's the second part, and it's just as important. Don't let yourself off the hook. Forgiveness isn't the same as excuse. You can give yourself grace without lowering your standards. True self-respect means saying, yes, I slipped, but that's not who I am. Then you get back up and act like the person you're trying to become. The goal isn't just to feel better, it's to be better. Holding yourself accountable doesn't mean being harsh. It means being honest. It means owning your missteps, learning from them, and then stepping right back into alignment. That's what real growth looks like, not flawless execution, but relentless recovery. This balance, grace and grit, is where real consistency is born. When you know how to forgive yourself, you keep your momentum. When you know how to hold yourself accountable, you keep your standards. Most people are stuck swinging between self-blame and self-justification. But when you stand firmly in the middle, with compassion in one hand and discipline in the other, you become unstoppable. You no longer fear failure because you know how to rise. And you no longer fear success because you know how to maintain it. That's what separates those who start from those who sustain the ability to recover with intention and keep going on purpose. So here's the truth. Consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's not about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. It's choosing over and over again to show up for the life you said you wanted. It's being loyal to your future even when your present doesn't feel like progress. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep moving. One small step, one honest effort, one more day of showing up. The world doesn't reward the ones who start fast. It rewards the ones who finish strong. And finishing strong isn't a one-time act. It's a lifestyle. It's built in the quiet mornings, the skipped excuses, the uncomfortable reps, and the deep belief that every action counts, even when no one's watching. Because eventually they will watch. Eventually they will ask how you did it. And your answer won't be magic or luck. It will be consistency. So go. Build the habits. Create the environment. Surround yourself with people who challenge your excuses and remind you of your potential. Forgive the stumbles, but stay committed to the climb. Because the life you want isn't waiting at the top of one big leap. It's being built right now, one consistent step at a time.